Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking. I'm your host, Jacqui Wilson, and today's guest hails from Springfield, Missouri. He is an author, freelance writer, a readership building coach, a speaker, and a CEO of Common Sense Marketing Strategies LLC, the parent company for Christian Author Community and Services Online Ministry, ChristianBook.net, TomBlubaugh.net, and GenesisProject.biz. He helps Christian authors get their books into the world, utilizing Matthew 24:14 as motivation. If you have a calling, he shows you how to knock out the hindrances and get unstuck off the shelf. His message is broadcast through books, blogs, social media, podcasts, interviews, and now CWS. Welcome this father, veteran, and mentor to CWS. Welcome, Tom Blubaugh. We're so excited to have you here.
Wow, that humbles me, Jacqui, but I'm very glad to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your audience.
Yes, you've had an amazing career. I would tell you to start from the beginning, but it's so much. But I really want to stop and talk about this thing that you're doing with authors and trying to get them to walk in their calling. But first, let's hear a little bit more about where you started and how you got to that point where you're helping other people spread their message from God.
Okay. Well, I do have to go back to 1969
Okay.
when I first got involved in the world of sales. And after a year in that, I realized that how they were teaching me is not the way I wanted to do it, because my job was to convince people against their will by trying to close them umpteen times and convince them to buy my product, whether they saw the need for it or not. And I didn't like that. So I decided that I was going to present myself and what I do and what I had to offer in the best way I knew how, and then keep my mouth shut and let them make their own decision and accept it, whether it's yes, no, or whatever. And that has served me very well over the years. I wasn't a Christian when I was doing that. I was kind of an amoral, moral person, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
But I just, I had been through a lot in my life, and I was not, I believed in God, but that was about the extent of it. Had no idea you could have a personal relationship. But at age 28, that all changed. And then he started showing how I could take those principles from the world and move them into my life as a Christian. And that's how it started. I became a financial planner. And then in 2015, I think, or 2011, my book was published, Night of the Cossack. It's the only fiction book that I've written. And a small independent publisher picked me up. And it was just when Amazon was just turning the industry of publishing upside down. And he had a harder time getting my book in Christian bookstores as I would having a traditional publisher read my manuscript. And I decided that I could do a better job than he could with what I knew. And I went online, and it was the most difficult thing that I have ever done, because it took me longer to pitch and sell a book and make a few dollars than it did as a financial planner and make thousands. And I saw these hundreds of Christian authors trying to figure out what a platform is, what a following was, why were the publishing companies wanting them to have 1,000 people on Facebook before they'd even talk to them. And so I thought, Lord, I can help these people. Well, I had been used to charging by the hour for 25 years or more. And that just didn't work with authors. I could not convey to them the value of what I had to offer.
Yeah.
But I knew at the same time, from my experience in financial planning, if there's no investment, there's no value. So I know they had to pay something. But in 2016, I woke up on a Saturday morning and I said, Lord, I don't get it. I said, I have this knowledge. I have this experience. I understand the publishing. I can help these people, but they run from me. And I heard 4 words come back: start an online community.
Mm.
Keep your prices low, keep your value high. I'm in my 6th year of working out those 4 words, but it is so far beyond anything that I ever dreamed that it would be. And that's the story of how I got where I am.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how we think something so simple and so small, God grows it into something so much bigger. And you actually, the community is thriving right now. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Yeah.
is. And the Lord sent me some wonderful people, of whom I've only met one in person. And it turned out that I met him on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
but he lived 10 minutes away from me.
Wow.
But we met for coffee and we just realized we had the same kind of a vision. And he just sends me people like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd have to have 10 arms and 3 heads.
Yeah. And I love how you're helping people, because a lot of times people they get stuck. And that's one of the things that you help them work out. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you help them get unstuck?
Well, it depends on, everybody's an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I work with authors who have spent upwards of $10,000 to publish a book and then didn't know what to do when they got done.
Oh, wow.
And I wish I would meet those people before, but I seem to meet them after. But the biggest thing is that I have to help them understand that instant gratification is the enemy of an author.
Mm.
And then when God calls you to write, it's like he's calling you to preach or be a missionary.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time. It takes time to figure out who your audience is, where they are, how you need to talk to them. They don't want you in their face trying to sell a book. They want you to develop a relationship with them and they get to know you, and that's how it's built. I got tired of the word marketing
Mm-hmm.
because it scared people, because marketing is such a huge domain. All we authors want to do is find readers. We don't have to be like McDonald's and put the golden arches on the freeway everywhere in the world to be recognized.
Mm-hmm.
And so it takes what you and I are doing. We introduce each other to each other's circle of influence.
Yeah.
And we grow together. And so they have to understand first that it's not a competition with anybody.
Yeah.
That none of us can write enough books to satisfy a hungry audience.
Yeah.
We just can't do it. So why not reach out to other authors, Christian authors writing the same genre, and introducing each other to each other's audience and promoting each other and interviewing each other and those kinds of things, and grow exponentially, because everybody on the average knows 300 people.
Yeah.
Okay. But if that's my only audience and I don't get out of my comfort zone, that explains why on the average an author sells less than 350 books.
Mm.
Because by the time he's done with his family and friends and frenemies and everything else, they don't want to hear about the book anymore. And they're done.
Yeah.
But if I could find 100 people who felt the same way I do, that each had 300 followers, now you multiply 300 by 100 and you've got a substantial audience.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do. And once they see that, then I want to know what their vision is and help them reverse engineer it so that we can figure out the best way to get from point A to point Z.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the Lord comes in.
Yeah. So I definitely want to hear more about how the Lord has helped you give them the right things. I love the fact that you said this is not a competition. Each of our stories are different, and you know, and we've all had different experiences, and what I may have to say may fit one person, and what you have to say may fit the other person. I love the concept of authors coming together to provide what the world needs. And I truly appreciate what you're doing, because that is so important, because this is not a competition. We all are in a race, but we're in a race to win the grand prize.
Right.
And that is to glorify God in the things that we do. And what Christian authors do, and especially what you do in giving them that empowerment to help them take that next step. It is so important to the work of God.
Thank you. I want to add one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 1994, I was trying to figure out God's will for my life.
Mm-hmm.
I had read books, I had listened to messages, but I understood loving your neighbor and loving God. But what about me as an individual, Tom Blubaugh? What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to be?
Mm.
And I was reading through the book of Proverbs, and I came across Proverbs 16:9. It says, a man's mind plans his way. God directs his steps.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, that's interesting, because I'm a planner. And I've heard people talk about getting ahead of God. Well, I know that you can't get ahead of God. That doesn't make any sense. I think I understand what they're saying, but God knows everything. So he knows before we get there where we're going. 3 days later, I think I read Proverbs 19:21. It says, in our heart are many ideas, but God's purpose will prevail.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked at those two verses and thought, okay, I plan and I have ideas, he directs and his purpose will prevail. Wow. And I just kind of leaned back and I said, God, is it that easy, really? And the words that came back to me, easy, no. Simple, yes. And I've been following those verses, and I share them with all the authors and everybody. I say, you think you're doing all this by yourself. And so when you plan to go to the mailbox to get your mail, and you step off the front porch and you twist your ankle, and you're facing this oak tree in your front yard, you've got a decision to make. Am I going to get to the mailbox no matter what, no matter how bad my ankle hurts? Or am I going to ask God, what's this oak tree have to do with your plan?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how I do things. So no matter how I get interrupted, how my day goes, what happens, God, you're directing. This works in here somehow. I'm going to learn something. I never was able to do that in my life, because when people interrupted what I was doing, I was angry, because you stopped me from my goal here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the way God operates.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It is a different perspective. I know a lot of people do think you can get ahead of God with your plans, but God does know us. He knows that we can be hard-headed. And as I hear often, and it's also in the Bible, he remembers that we are made from dirt. And there are just some things.
But we're also fearfully and wonderfully made.
Absolutely. And that is one of my favorite scriptures, because we were created to be these masterpieces for him. So I love that scripture. I absolutely love that scripture.
I used to work with homeless people quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell them when they became a Christian, I said, you know, for all I know, God spent 10,000 years of our time just on you, thinking about your personality and your gifts and your talents and stuff before he ever put you in your mother's womb.
Yeah.
So, you know, when somebody tells you you're dumb, you're stupid, you're no good, you can't do anything, just look to God and say, I know that's not true.
And I think those are some of the barriers that authors do face, is that because so many people have said negative things, and sometimes it can almost feel like when you're writing in the Christian genre, you're by yourself and you're feeling alone, and you're like, you're right when you say, Lord, you know, what is it that you want me to say? What is it that, you know, you want me to get to the people? And it is like, I don't know if I can do it. But like I said, that's why it's so important that you do what you're doing, because you're empowering them to walk in their call. And so many people are afraid of that call and afraid of how people will treat them. And reality is, some people will mistreat you. Some people will talk about you. Some people will not support you because they don't understand. But as is often said, God gave you the vision, not them. It may not be for them to understand.
That's right. And Jesus's family sure didn't understand him,
Yeah.
to the point that he said that a prophet's not without honor, except in his own land among his own people. And so the very people you're going to try to sell your book are the people you shouldn't be going to.
And I had another interview not too long ago with Lindsay, and she was talking about how she expected God to do this great thing, send her on this great mission, but God was telling her to start ministering to some of the people around her. You have to listen to where God is leading you. And unfortunately, there will be people in your life that will not provide you with that support, or they just don't understand. And that's one of the things I'm learning more and more is they just really don't understand, because if they understood, they would support you in some kind of way. But it's okay that they don't understand. They're not at that level that you are right now. And it's nothing against them. They may be at a different level spiritually in another area where you need to go. But it is a process. And it is important to get past those obstacles that we face so that we can continue to move forward in our call.
You know, what you said is very, very true, because I learn as much from the people that I'm coaching as they learn from me. It's just from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, you know, that sometimes they clear up something from their experience that I've been wrestling with. And well, it's a two-way street, you know, it's never one way. But also what you said, Jesus said, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the othermost parts of the world. If you never get out of your comfort zone, and you can never get out of Jerusalem, there's no way you can go to Judea, Samaria, and the other parts of the world.
Yeah.
You got to break that mold sometime.
And even if people are not listening to you right now, Jesus's brother later on talked about how he had to come to God, how he did not believe at first what his brother was saying, you know, and it, like I said, it can be very hard, but that should not stop you. Like you said, God said, hard, no, simple, yes. It's not going to always be the easy journey. It's not. But as I recently talked to someone, what is a testimony without a test?
There is none.
Exactly.
And God doesn't test us to find out who we are, because he already knows.
Yes.
I found out that testing tells me who I am.
Yes, absolutely. It truly does reveal who you are on the inside. Right. And I tell people all the time, don't talk about other people's experiences until you have experienced it, because you don't know who you will be in that situation.
That's exactly right.
So it's so important. So let's talk about how people can connect with you, because you're doing a lot. You have multiple websites, you have your company, you have multiple websites, and you're also on social media. Can you tell people how to connect with you and what they may find on your websites?
Well, what they find on the website is not everything they need to know.
Okay.
So what I do, if the person is serious, I've got to feel it in my heart, I gift them with a 30-day membership into my community. So they can experience, talk to other people, find out how I do things, what I do. I use Microsoft Teams. I use PowerPoints. I use videos. I use discussion sessions on Thursday morning. I have a dream team, I call them. They're my consultants in all kinds of areas that are available for questions. Then they can be hired. And when they're hired, then a percentage comes back to me, because that's how I keep things going. And then I have vendors, everything that's needed. So it's a safe harbor. It's almost like a mall. that you can go in, and there's different rooms. And if you need to know about social media, go in that room, and there's videos and articles and things like that. And then there's people you can talk to. And that's kind of how I operate. My websites, the Christian author community gives an overview and an opportunity to join. But I don't put on there anything about a free membership. I tried that, it doesn't work, no investment, no value. And so they can then schedule a 30-minute video call with me, takes them directly into my calendar, so they know it's that time. I just have to be a little careful because I'm working with people who are 17 hours ahead of me in some places. And so I don't want them calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm trying to rejuvenate my body. But that's pretty much how I do it. Then there's tomblubaugh.net is really about me, testimonies about me and what I do and stuff. Then I have christianbookclub.net, and I help them draw in people to purchase their books. And so that alone is worth a lot.
I love the fact that you say it's a safe harbor, because a lot of people do want to be within a community where they feel safe to share their ideas and to connect and not feel like people are criticizing them.
Right. Or taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
Or stealing something from them. And in fact, I have a private chat room set up with every person. And there's on demand. They can video call me, audio call me, or text me 24/7. If I'm available, I'll pick up. If I'm not, I get a message that they're trying to reach me, and I'll get back to them. And so that's the kind of access they have. And then I can find out what their problem is. And if I can't help them immediately, if it's outside of my wheelhouse, because most of knowledge is outside my wheelhouse, I connect them with the person who can help them. And it works beautifully.
Yeah. Now you have a couple of books yourself. Can you tell people about your books before we move on?
I have 3 that are active right now. One is Night of the Cossack, which is my only novel about my grandfather, who was a Jew, a Russian Cossack soldier, and defected to the United States. He died before I was born, as did my other grandfather. So I didn't have the privilege of having a granddad, and yet I have 14 grandchildren. Wow. And so I don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, that is available. It's also available in a homeschool edition with teaching lessons in it. I have a children's book, The Legend of the Ticklebugs, which was inspired by a granddaughter. And it basically talks about how God created us to laugh and enjoy things and tickling and stuff like that. And then I have a third one that's based on things that God has taught me in my life. And that's Thoughts for Deep Thinkers and Curious Space Travelers. And so I get into things that he's shown me, from how he brought a butterfly back that I missed getting a picture of one day, a week later, and told me the butterfly's in the backyard. And I went, I'm not too sure about this, but I got the most beautiful picture out of that, of a butterfly that I'd never taken. And from that kind of a thing up to the very complex stuff. So yeah, those are my books. They're all available on Amazon.
Sounds like a very interesting life that you had.
I have.
So as we segue, what is the one thing that you really want to leave with the people? You know, you have so many experience. You're almost 80 years old. And I know it's hard to ask, you know, if you can bring it down to a couple of things to leave with the people, what would that be?
Number one, that God himself is an author. He inspired the Bible. He wrote the Bible. It's been the best-selling book since it was published, and it will be till he comes back.
Yeah.
He understands an author, the writing part. He is also a tremendous marketing person because he took 12 men, of which one
Yeah.
was a thief, and then added the Apostle Paul. 3 years out of his life on earth. And here we are 2,000 years later with millions and millions and millions,
Yeah.
in fact, billions of Christians. So we know he knows how to put things together.
Yeah.
Proverbs 16:9, 19:21 is how he'll do that through you. Don't forget that. The second thing is the calling to be an author is like the calling to be a missionary.
Mm.
If you ever interview a missionary, some of them from the time they received the call till the time they surrendered, went to school, learned the languages, sold their home, took their family, went to whatever country they were going to, learned about the country, the customs of the country, got to know the people, developed a relationship until they finally led one person to the Lord. It might be 20 years. Time doesn't matter to God.
Yeah.
But you never know what may happen out of that.
Yeah. One person can do amazing things, as
Amazing things. I could list a number of people who have worldwide ministries who've reached millions of people through their ministry. Somebody had to lead that person to the Lord and didn't have any idea and may have died before ever seeing the fruit of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this vision that when we get to heaven, if we're truly called by God, I think he's going to turn us around and say, you see all those people out there?
Mm-hmm.
They're here because of the ministry I had through you.
Oh man, that's such
Gives
an
me
amazing
goosebumps.
picture. Oh man, such an amazing just picture to think about how it will be in heaven and to know that you have influenced people. And that's why I said what you're doing is so important and empowering authors to get their message out there, because where one can't reach, another one can. And you don't know what that one person will do and how they will change millions of lives because you were the one to influence them.
It's kind of humbling.
It
And I think
is.
there's a third thing I need to say,
Okay.
is that God doesn't care whether you sell 1 million books or 10 books.
Mm-hmm.
If he's called you, you have to accept it as a calling, and his purpose will prevail, because your job may be to reach 10 people with your book that aren't going to be reached any other way. And so you just have to live with that. You know, it's not all, oh, my book's going to be a bestseller on the New York Times and it's going to be a movie, and, you know, no, we don't all do that. Yeah, there are mega churches that men are called and women are called to pastor, but most pastors, small congregations,
Yeah.
no notoriety. They don't become well known. And so authors have to live with that.
Yeah.
He's got his purpose, and you have to understand that's going to be predominant in your life.
Yeah. It's about you fulfilling your purpose, whatever that may be.
That's right. And doing the best you can, no matter what.
Yeah. And I can honestly say that when you are living your purpose and not what somebody else wants you to do, you will have a feeling inside of you. You really will. You can't explain it. You just know that this is where you're supposed to be in that moment.
Right. And you'll accomplish more than you ever dreamed in areas that you never thought about.
Yeah.
Because your book might end up being a business card to speaking. Your book might end up being like a gospel tract that you give away free. It's not in your control.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to do the best that you can do with what God's called you to do, and know he knows what he's doing.
Amen to that. And I think that's a great way to end today's interview. Thank you so much for being a part of this. So many nuggets, so many things that people can take away from this. The main thing I would say, don't run away from your calling. You know, I love the fact that you said God is an author himself. Okay. Right. He understands the process of what you have to go through to fulfill that call. You're not alone. It may feel like it, but you're not alone. And I'm so thankful for communities such as yours, where people can come and feel safe and get the resources they need to fulfill the call that God has for their life. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until next time, people, thank you for listening in, and we will see you on our next episode. God bless.